Omori might just well be the best game I played last year, which is funny, to say it released only 6 days before the year ended, but it's truly hard to find something that I've played that can top it. In essence, Omori is a turn-based, explorative, story-based RPG with horror elements, and boy, do they hit hard. Omori has a very interesting art style, blending recognisable retro graphics reminiscent of Earthbound with hand-drawn background and animated character art during battles and at times surreal hyperrealism. Developed by Omocat, Omori is based off a comic by the same name called Omori's Story, made in 2013. However, the comic is considerably smaller than the actual game itself. Omori has had its fair share of controversy, associated with the Kickstarter project in particular and a debacle over refunds not being issued for backers who had lost interest in the game during its particularly lengthy period of development. However, for this video I'm not going to focus on that as this has not personally affected my experience of the game, however I can obviously see why this would for the original backers. Omori wastes no time revealing its more horror-infused hand to the player. As early as the prologue, there are already signs that something isn't quite right. The White Space, an ominous area where Omori awakens, borders on unsettling, and the disappearance of a character early into the game only further fuels this. As the game continues to progress, these dark moments become more frequent and more meaningful for illustrating the events of the story. There are 6 key characters in this game: Omori, Mari, Aubrey, Kel, Hero, and Basil, that are all considered important to the story. Mari is Omori's sister, who acts as a save point for most of the early game with a recognisable picnic basket but becomes vitally important as the game progresses. The other 4 are Omori's childhood friends. Basil, in particular, a flower crown wielding boy who enjoys watering flowers, becomes central to the story following his disappearance early into the game. Let's talk about the mechanics, the first being the battle system. Omori is not too dissimilar in structure to that of tried and tested turn-based RPGs. That's to say there is a leveling and party system, as well as item equips that can boost stats alongside skills that are learned through experience. One thing Omori does do differently that I haven't seen before is its emotion system. In the world of Omori, happy beats angry, angry beats sad, and sad beats happy. It's possible to afflict both friend or foe with the emotion status, giving them stronger or weaker attacks based on their emotion. It's also possible to reach heightened versions of these base emotions, with Omori and Omori only being able to feel extreme versions of these emotions. Certain enemies are able to give themselves or your party a particular emotion which may affect your stats such as your attack and defense. The emotion system adds a welcomed element of strategy to many of the boss fights, however it's often not critical for average encounters. Follow-up moves is another key element to the game. This is a system that works off an energy bar on the screen. In practice, it is essentially an extra turn to some degree. Certain actions using follow-up moves will see characters gain an extra attack, inflict a certain emotion, or gain health and SP, called juice in this game. The follow-up move system can be activated whenever the follow-up bar reaches at least 3. The bar is increased by taking damage from an enemy and can reach a maximum of 10. Once the maximum of 10 is released, Omori and his friends have the ability to perform their ultimate attack, which is a very strong team attack that deals high damage with no SP cost. As the game progresses, follow-up moves will improve and deal more damage as well as evolve. For example, this follow-up attack evolves from Omori not seeing Aubrey's affection towards him to doing just that, when the follow-up move between them improves. It's a small but cute little moment in the game. The bosses in this game are fairly unique. Do you want to fight the insides of a whale? You can do that. Do you want to fight a nightmarish creepy crawly in the middle of a dark forest? Hero, how are you scared of spiders but not this monstrosity? Or how about a buff as fuck version of the planet Pluto? Or maybe you want to fight the most irritating character in a video game since the Mario RPG's Fawful. God, I fucking hate Fawful. Yep, you can absolutely do that, and the music during this section is fucking amazing. It's time to talk about the story, and this is your warning, there are going to be heavy spoilers from this point forward. Early into the prologue, the player realises the initial world of Omori is not real. The world is a dream world-like state known as Headspace. To leave, Omori has to stab himself in white space, in turn waking himself up in the real world as the character Sunny, or whatever the player chooses as their name. If you open the door, you will meet Kel, the real-world version of him that is older than his childlike dream self. It's been 3 years since the player has seemingly answered the door, as Kel notes,
I didn't expect you to come out.
This is something pretty closely associated with depression, which is a strong theme within the game. It's revealed that Sunny is moving away in the next 3 days, which is a somewhat important point to the story. You'll then meet Basil, who's being bullied by a group of kids, one of them being a much older, angsty and violent Omori. A stark contrast to the happy and kind version in the dream world. Things escalate when in a fight with Aubrey you stab her with the knife that you picked up.
Call an ambulance! But not for me!
As the story progresses, you realise Sunny's sister Mari committed suicide, and this has had a profound effect on the characters within the game. Hiro has been extremely reluctant to visit Mari's grave, and it's implied he suffered from severe depression after the events of Mari's suicide. Aubrey, on the other hand, becomes angry by the events of Mari's death and her belief that no one was there to help her through it. It explains her behaviour towards Basil, as Basil, or more specifically his photo book, holds many of the photos of Mari and her old friends. For her, stealing the photo book was the only way of dealing with Mari's death, in the same way of looking back at memories. I think one of Omori's most bittersweet moments comes in the form of the photo book. Early into the game, you're introduced to Basil's photo book, where you have the fun task of assembling the photos in the right order in the dream world. It seems innocent enough at the time, but by the end of the game you were given the same task, placing all the photos of Mari in the photo book to complete it. It's a beautiful but sad section of the game, and I'm not gonna lie, it did make me cry. There is something about Mari's theme and the contrast of the happy memories coupled with the current reality that makes this moment so powerful and gripping. A light bulb often represents an idea. It's associated with positivity, a light of hope. In Omori, the light bulb represents the opposite. The light bulb in this case doesn't represent hope, it's black, representing the repression of an idea or a truth that Sunny has kept hidden from himself for so long. This is where the twist in Omori comes into play. Throughout the basis of the game, it's heavily implied that Mari's death is down to a suicide, and the title of the game, Omori, is coming to terms with this weight and being able to move on, and to some extent this is true for many of the characters. However, there are 2 characters which cannot be said this is true for. The real truth of Omori is that Mari's death was never a suicide, as it's revealed when you enter Black Space, an area in Headspace that holds Sunny's darkest reality. Through completing a twisted version of Basil's photo book, we learn Sunny is living with the guilt of accidentally killing his sister by pushing her down the stairs during a heated argument, alongside Basil, who acted as an accomplice to keeping the truth hidden by framing it as a suicide. It's a considerably dark turn for the story to take. It's further implied that this isn't the first time that Omori has faced this reality either, as stated before, entering Black Space.
You have come again to seek the truth. As your journey nears its end, it will always lead back here. Many times your friends have met with an unfortunate fate, although they are revived time and time again. And, like each time before it, attempt to rewrite your fate.
As you come to further learn as the player character, Omori is not a good character, as hinted in the game through these words.
This form, though, it has not shown its true self.
Omori comes to represent the weight, but this time it's the weight of Sunny killing his sister and framing her death. In facing Omori, Sunny is coming to terms with this reality instead of hiding away from it. The actions that depict how this game will end are dependent on if Sunny gives up against Omori, letting him continue to control Sunny, or whether Sunny finally faces the truth and takes responsibility for Mari's death to his friends. I think Omori is one of those games that leaves a lasting impact on you after you've played it. It has moments that can feel gut-wrenchingly sad and hopeless, while in other moments being able to present itself as funny and wholesome. But one of Omori's most powerful messages is that of hope. The good ending of the game may be left somewhat ambiguous as to how Sunny's friends take his confession regarding Mari's death, though I think it's implied they will forgive him. But most importantly, Sunny no longer has to carry the weight of the lie within himself anymore, symbolised by the scene where Omori finally disappears. The move itself represents a new start for Sunny as well, further igniting the message of hope for a second chance. However, even after all this, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what much of this game has to offer. Shortly before writing the script for this video, saw talk of an alternative route known as the Hikomori route, which has a great deal of extra content but is ultimately a darker path to follow. It focuses much more heavily on the area of Black Space, particularly after a headspace reset, and becomes activated when Sunny chooses not to answer the door on any of the days. As a result, Sunny falls further into his headspace world until eventually nothing but Omori remains. However, Headspace is still falling apart as he cannot escape the reality he tries so desperately to avoid. That's all I'm going to say about the Hikomori route. I encourage you to take that route yourself. I know I will be doing that sometime in the future. If there's anything to take away from Omori, it's this. Be kind to others. You don't know what they may be going through. Everyone heals from tragedy a little differently, as evidenced by Aubrey and her reactions towards how everyone dealt with it. We need to understand that other people are going to deal with loss in a different way, and that's okay. Sunny's predicament is an extreme one, but it still doesn't discredit the feeling of guilt placed upon people's shoulders who may be suffering from depression and denial from traumatic events. Always remember that there are people there for you, people you can trust, people who you can reach out to, and people who love you. So, would I recommend you to play Omori? Absolutely. This game is a real hidden gem of an indie game. I wouldn't be surprised if it were to blow up in a similar vein to that of Undertale in the near future. In the making of this video, I asked a friend of mine who had also played Omori to tell me briefly what he thought of the game, and this is what he said.
Omori is such a fantastic game. I'm sure Speed has already addressed how outstanding this game actually is, so I'll keep it short here. Omori is such an interesting game with the way the battles play out. The way the story presents itself to you and the mechanics that this game have really make it stand out from the rest. The fact that you go between the real world and the dream world is a really interesting way of playing things out, and we learn a lot about our protagonists despite them basically never speaking. However, I believe the thing that takes the cake here, for me anyways, is the final boss. The final boss has such an impact on the player. The music being Sunny's instrument of choice, and violin, fits this scene more than anything else. Another outstanding part is the fact that the final boss has no emotion whatsoever throughout the entirety of the fight. It's such a fantastic fight that is definitely one of, if not, my all-time favorite final boss battles. Overall, I believe Omori isn't just a great game, I believe it's a great experience, and I highly suggest that you inform other people about this outstanding game and play it for yourself if you haven't already.
As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my first big scale, highly edited video, and I'm still working around some of the kinks, such as my mic quality and just the overall quality of the editing. So if you enjoyed this video, please share it if you can, and consider subscribing if you enjoyed. It really does mean the world to me. I don't monetize my videos as of right now, so I only really do this out of a passion and to entertain. On a side note, I'm also working on a more expanded, more visually appealing Trials Riddle video that I was hoping to put up a month after my Dead by Daylight video, but due to COVID, the riddle has been postponed, so it's kind of tricky to get a video out because I want it to be the whole timeline from start to finish. So that's why there's been a bit of a gap in my uploads recently. So I hope that's understandable. I'm going to try and focus on making more sort of game reviews in a similar vein to this. I really enjoyed Omori, as you can see. So when I have a game that I get that similar sort of passion towards, I'm definitely going to make a video on it. So yeah, keep an eye on sort of the channel, and just we'll see what happens from here. As some people know, I had big exams coming up with the UK government that they're cancelled now, so it's kind of a weird place to put me in because I still have work, but I don't have as high a workload. So I'm going to try and get a few more videos out if I can over the course of this year. But yeah, as I said, I've been talking for way too long. Thank you for watching the video, and yes, goodbye.